Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined by Justin Snider. He is running for Congress in Texas, House of Reps, District 6. So we've had a lot of Texas people. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Justin.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. One of the first things I noticed about you, you were recommended to me by someone, and I kind of like to vet them before I give the A-OK. But one of the things I noticed first is that your slogan is not a politician.
Yes.
So that kind of drew me in because we're all sick of the status quo shit, so
Right.
fuck that. What made you come up with that slogan, and what does it mean to you?
Well, ultimately, I'm tired of career politicians running for office and them being my only option on the ballot. I don't really feel like they have their constituents' needs at heart. So ultimately, I really believe that we need more average citizens running for office and not just lawyers, doctors, big business people running for office. We need more average citizens who understand the real struggle that we all go through from day to day.
Absolutely. And I saw that you're a locksmith. Is that what you do for your profession?
Yeah, yeah. I'm a locksmith. I've had my own business for over 10 years now, going on 11. And yeah, it's just a passion of mine. I actually enjoy it for multiple reasons, but one is I'm actually able to help out a lot of people through that. There's being locked out, being stranded is something that is very difficult to deal with. So I am able to help out a lot of people who I see. There's a lot of people who are locked out and stranded and can't really afford to have a locksmith sometimes come out and help them out. So I will do some charitable work through my business as well.
That's awesome. So I'm sure you get to meet a lot of people doing that as well. Do you ever kind of, I don't want to say campaign to them, but do you ever kind of feel around what are they passionate about?
Well,
Things like
definitely. Yeah, I definitely, let them know that I'm running for office. I very rarely have a customer that is still angry after I get out there and I help them out. So, I just let people know, hey, I'm glad you're appreciative. Just let you know I'm running for office. And, most of the people are going to be in my district whenever I go help them out. That being said, I have been concentrating 100% of my time on the campaign. So I haven't been doing that a lot lately. My dad has been working for me. He's kind of been taking my place. And so he's kind of doing that, though. But yeah, I'm not in front of the customers doing much campaign work at the moment, but I did up until probably August.
And I digress, but can you kind of lift up and show people your shirt, your symbol?
That was
That
an
caught my
image.
attention as well.
That was an image one of my volunteers came up with. It was pretty good, and I really appreciate them doing that for us.
Yeah, it definitely stands out. I was like, it's very Bernie-ish. And
Yeah.
that's what caught my eye, like the drawing of his crazy hair. And
Well, that's kind of what we were going for. Yeah. That was one thing that I was kind of known for back in the primaries, the 2016 primaries. I actually had Bernie's hair cut out, or his hair logo, I guess, and with the facial cut out, so you could actually put your face on Bernie's hair.
oh, and you were a delegate, right?
Yes, I was a national delegate. I went to the convention, which was very traumatizing.
I was actually outside screaming
Okay.
and chanting and stomping my feet and shaking the fence.
Well,
That
thank
was
you for being there, because I'll tell you right now, that really meant a lot to us who were inside. We dealt with a lot of hate in there. I'll just say that. I was called Republican, whenever I was in there, and just we were not greeted very well at the convention. It's pretty sad.
It was. It definitely, and I think it says so much about what kind of people the Hillary supporters are. Not a lot of them have changed, and come around, but I think at that point there was just so much ugliness, and people didn't understand why we didn't want to be associated with that. I just remember sitting on the lawn next door where everything was being filmed. It was being shown on big screens. And I just remember delegates coming out and just sobbing. And we were just all holding each other. And it was just like the roughest week of all of our lives. It was so traumatizing and just so undemocratic.
It was one of the roughest and best weeks of my life because I did meet so many good people at the convention. And, they weren't all delegates. They were people that were outside trying to let their voice be heard. And, so, yeah, it was an emotional roller coaster. One of the things that I wanted to do at the convention was to let the, Clinton delegates know, right. I think it was the Saturday or the Sunday before the start of the convention, a poll was released that Hillary Clinton was 5 points down on Donald Trump. So I was really trying to get the message across that, 27 of 28 polls that were held in 2016 showed that Bernie Sanders had a better chance of defeating any Republican option than Hillary Clinton did. So I was really trying to get that message across to the Hillary delegates and try to get them to change their vote. Sadly, that didn't happen, but I think I actually swayed one delegate, believe it or not.
Yeah, unfortunately, the vagina aspect just kind of superseded everything else. We want a woman. We don't care. We're going to make it happen. And that was an epic fail, unfortunately, and we're all having to pay for it right now. Yeah. So you are running as a Democrat.
Yes.
That being said, so, witnessing what we witnessed and everything, was it hard for you to choose to go Democrat? Were you considering independent or another party? Or why did you choose to go that way?
Well, Texas is a very difficult state to run in, period, not being a Republican. And, I've voted Democrat my whole life. Now, I consider myself a Dem-enter. I really want to change the way – I want to change the establishment Democratic Party. So I really want them to know that, we can be supportive of you if you can let real progressives enter the party and have a say in the way, in the way we go on certain issues. And we made a huge difference at our state convention here in Texas. We really put forward we changed the platform on for the state party. So we did that through petitions, and so I think there were it was like 4 or 5 items that we had passed to, I guess, make the Texas platform more progressive, similar to what Bernie did at the national convention.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed a number of progressives from Texas more than any other state. And it seems like you guys are at least getting progressives to run. You're getting, you're planting the seeds, whether, regardless if what happens, people are realizing that there are people who want progressive ideas, which is the main thing. I noticed on your Facebook page, you actually, on February 8th, you said that all 5 of the Democratic candidates in your district went to a newspaper and they asked you guys who would vote to overturn NAFTA, and you were the only Democrat who raised their hand.
Yeah, I
kind
was a
of
little surprised by
thing
that.
that was
Honestly, I was really taken back. I had no idea that my opponents um, were not fully against NAFTA. Uh, I just assumed, and that question had never come up before. Now, I recognize that NAFTA has been horrible for the American worker, uh, but also, it's the only people that really NAFTA really helps is major corporations, and I feel like that's why we're in the state we are, with so many people being unemployed and prices going up, but our wages staying stagnant. That's a problem that we're really having to deal with right now, and a lot of that has to do with these bad trade deals that we're putting forward.
And I think a lot of people wouldn't vote against it because they realize that the Clintons are so heavily involved with why it came to fruition. Mm-hmm. Do you think that these other four people are like huge Clinton supporters?
Well, I know two were, for a fact, from the beginning. They were throughout the primary and the general. But now, from what I understand, one of my opponents was supportive of Bernie in the primary. However, he wasn't very active in the efforts to get Bernie's name out there. But even he said that he wouldn't vote to overturn NAFTA. So, I really don't know what the reasoning is behind that. But now I think they say that Texas has benefited from NAFTA, and I'll admit, Texas has probably done better than many other states due to NAFTA because we're on the Mexico border. But I still don't believe it has helped Texas versus if we went without it, because we're still sending jobs across the border, and a lot of those jobs are near slave wages. So we can't expect our workers to compete with that, and ultimately, I don't really feel comfortable sending work over there and having people working in horrible conditions either. That's not a fair. We need to be supportive of fair wages, whether it's in our nation or others as well.
Yeah, I did see that on your platform. So what is the minimum wage that you are fighting for right now?
Well, generally I'm with Bernie on the $15 an hour minimum wage, but my message has really been to put forward just at least have a standard livable minimum wage. Now, and the reason I kind of go with that is because I recognize here in Texas, if our minimum wage is $15 an hour, we'll actually do all right. They'll be able to afford an apartment, and afford the necessities of life. But now somebody in, say, San Francisco living on $15 an hour would probably be struggling. So I kind of feel like maybe we can do something to adjust to the area, but that's just an idea I have in my head. But generally, yeah, $15 minimum wage I think would be great. But we have to make sure that people can not only afford rent, but be able to afford to eat, have health care. They need to be able to take care of the minimum necessities.
And what are your feelings on healthcare? Do you support Medicare for all?
I am supportive of a Medicare for all system. Pretty much all of the candidates in this race, the Democratic candidates, are supportive of a universal healthcare system. But ultimately, I feel like Medicare for all, I believe it will be the easiest to pass because Americans recognize it. They know its name. So ultimately, I think it'll be easier. Now, on top of that, I also worry, the way Congress is today, I really worry about them putting forward a universal healthcare bill that will not have something embedded in it that will go back to purely benefiting, the big corporations. So, yeah, I think if we stick to Medicare for all, it's less likely that the lobbyists and our representatives who are influenced by lobbyists will be able to harm it. So I think it'll just be a cleaner bill if we stick to a Medicare for all system.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's worked in healthcare for a decade, I see this, I've seen Obamacare has a lot of flaws, but the best thing it did was get rid of the pre-existing condition clause. And that's what terrifies me about having it come back, because before that was there, I've had to tell people who have cancer, I'm sorry, we can't give you insurance. And I don't think a lot of people understand that's how it was. And that's what we could go back to. So that's terrifying for anyone. So definitely, I think Medicare for all and universal health care is kind of a litmus test for a lot of people to give someone their vote. It seems like that's a big one. You also talk about campaign finance reform. So with that, I'm going to be presumptuous. You are not taking any corporate money.
Not taking any corporate money, not taking any super PAC money. We are endorsed by Free Thought Equality Fund, which is a PAC. But no super PACs and no corporate money.
And why are you passionate about that? Why is that something you think is important enough to put on your platform?
Well, I don't feel like our representatives represent us anymore. They represent, just the PAC money, the corporations, and really the only way for me to prove to the voters and my constituents is to not take that money. That way, they can be further ensured that, their best interest is at my heart. So, we need to. Ultimately, I really believe that we need to go to. We need to have publicly funded elections. That's the only real way I see us getting away from our representatives giving preferential treatment to those with money. And once we get there, I think overall we'll all be better off.
I agree. And it's just like Byrne said, if you win that way, it's not a win, it's a purchase. And that's exactly what we're learning. I had Congressman Ro Khanna on, and he was telling me that he started this thing where basically the congressmen pledge that they will not take any money if they run again from super PACs, things like that. He's one of 6. That's it. Mm-hmm. So you're talking everyone else in Congress is not okay with telling them no, which is kind of scary that there's only 6 people.
Where they lie. That shows, they're taking the money. They're benefiting from it. I worry about how much they're benefiting from it that we don't know about. There have been cases here locally where I worry about my city council members and how much they're benefiting from their position outside of just the typical pay for a city council member. It really is scary what they can get away with. And one of the things that I'm supportive of is something I think Represent Us is backing, and that's the American Anti-Corruption Act. So I would be supportive of putting that forward when I'm in office.
Awesome. You also talk about income inequality on your platform. So aside from the minimum wage, what else are your passions as far as that being on your platform? What do you think we need to overcome in regard to income inequality?
It's really been a while since I've discussed that subject, but it all goes back to, corruption in politics. We have so many regulations that continue to get lifted, where we had protections for workers. Our workers' pensions are being stripped down. And the benefits that they were promised, while they were working, are now being taken away. So, that has a lot to do with income inequality. We're basically allowing corporations to put more and more money in their pockets. And, they claim that they're not making enough themselves. However, they're the only ones. They're the only ones whose bank accounts are really growing. We keep cutting taxes, but it's not for you and me. It's for those at the top. We're complaining about our nation's debt, yet we continue to cut taxes. It absolutely doesn't make any sense. They say they're creating jobs, yet, we've been doing this for decades. And, job growth is staying the same, if not getting worse. It's not helping us. It's just the things they're claiming are just downright not true. It's just to allow them to get away with more and more injustice in the workplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you familiar with what MMT is?
No.
Is modern monetary theory. Basically, it's more of a science that states that your federal taxes do not fund spending. So when they're, talking about all this debt, it's not accurate. We don't have that debt. That is put there and, regurgitated constantly to basically tell us that we can't do things we need to do. Mm-hmm. That's why there's so many other countries who actually have these things that we fight for and don't have to say, well, let's cut this so we can have this. They have the means. It's by design, unfortunately.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're the wealthiest nation in the world, and we can't afford healthcare that other nations are giving their citizens. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It is. It really is. Let's see. Looks like, okay, we're going to have someone send you a link about MMT. It's just something really good to be knowledgeable about. Not that you're going to be dealing with federal taxes as much, but it's still good to know what MMT is and what have you. Now, Texas is an open state, correct? An open primary?
Say that again.
An open primary in Texas?
An open primary. It's I think it's considered semi-open primary. So you can choose whatever primary you want to vote in. But you can only vote in the Democratic or the Republican primary. I've only lived in Texas, so I can't compare it to any other states.
Well, I'm in Pennsylvania, and we have a closed primary. We have to register a month in advance and all that fun stuff. I looked it up, and it looks like your primary date is March 6th, and absentee cutoff is February 23rd. So it looks like you guys are actually the first state that's holding their primaries.
Yeah, I heard we get started pretty early, which, I like. That way we know who's going forward and they can start concentrating on the general. Yeah.
Absolutely. So being that you guys are semi-open, are you just basically speaking to anyone who will listen, or are you focusing only on Democrats, or what has been strategically the route you're going?
I've actually been talking to everybody. Believe it or not, I've been very successful in talking to conservative voters. I see a problem with the way Democrats have been running campaigns here locally. They just go out and talk to Democrats, and to be honest, we just don't have that number. And I look at you can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So yeah, I recognize that if I want to not only get through the primary, but also, win the general election, I need to talk to everybody. I need to talk to Republicans and especially independents, because the independent vote is the strongest vote we have. So, I've really just I knock on every door. I don't just go and knock on Democratic doors.
That's extremely advantageous because as a registered independent, I am looked over all the time. Now, when it's corporate Dems and stuff, good. Don't just keep going anyway. But I still like to actually communicate what progressive ideals are. And, so I think that's definitely good for you, especially since you have the ability to let them vote either way. It would be, dumb
if we're
to
in a closed primary, it might be a little different strategically. But I'm actually getting conservative voters say that they'll vote for me in the primary, in the Democratic primary. So, it's not hurting me to go and knock on every door.
Absolutely. Something else, the candidates I've interviewed from Texas, a lot of them say the same thing, that private prisons are kind of common in Texas. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a shame, really. We're locking people up. They're charging them and their families and a crazy amount of money to go and visit and actually have a meal with them. Now, I think I've heard, like a microwavable sandwich can cost somewhere to $12 and $14 for an individual sandwich, and it's just robbery. They're forcing these inmates to work for next to nothing, and ultimately, it doesn't do anything to discourage crime and imprisonment. It's a pipeline. They charge people for petty crimes and they stick them in jail, and ultimately that a lot of those private prison systems give a lot of money to candidates, and so ultimately the candidates are, those in office have no desire to do anything about this private prison system problem that we have. The prison system is supposed to be there to protect, the citizens and to really rehabilitate people. And that's not what it's there for anymore. It's simply to fatten the paychecks of those at the top.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons a lot of people didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, because her and Bill have a huge, they make bank from the for-profit prisons. Do you believe in marijuana legalization?
Yes, I do. One of the biggest arguments I get against it is that we're going to have that many more wrecks, not due to alcohol, but due to people just being high and driving. So ultimately, we would have to have laws that to be in place to say you can't be smoking while driving or something along those lines. But that's just an excuse for them to put these people in prisons for something as small as possession of marijuana. And you know what? I look at it this way: it's safer than alcohol. So if we're not going to outlaw alcohol, then we should legalize marijuana for sure. And not only that, but marijuana benefits a lot of people medically. So I don't see any reason why it should not be legalized.
Absolutely. Are people politically active in your district? Not just like the annual Women's March, but do you see people doing protests and marches and things like that where you live?
Yeah, we have a lot of things going on. One of the big movements right now here in Texas, they passed a bill. It's called SB4, and this has basically allowed local money to go to helping ICE track down, those who might not be here legally. Now, another thing it has done is it has allowed our local police officers to ask for papers. And one of the big problems of this is it can lead to discrimination. People could be pulled over, even more so, simply because they look like they might be Mexican. So, that's one of the big battles that we're dealing with here locally. And, so there's been a lot of action on that front.
And how do you feel about DACA and immigration reform, and what are your plans as a candidate should you win?
Well, I'm supportive of DACA. I really want to see us put forward an immigration reform. Ultimately, from what I understand, it's so difficult to become a citizen, especially from Mexico. From what I understand, they're still looking at applications that were submitted in the 90s. So, if we have a process that takes that long to go through, and not only that, just think about the the filing fees and the lawyer fees and all that, it gets so expensive too. So, ultimately, I don't blame somebody for giving up on the process. So really, I want to see, immigration reform. We need to allow people to become citizens in a timely manner. Once we do that, I am supportive of letting those who have been here for so long and, have been good members of our community to ultimately become citizens themselves. And then hopefully, at some point, we won't need the DACA program. We'll have a good enough immigration system where, people will be here and they'll be here legally.
Absolutely. How can we move forward with the ridiculous amount of vote shaming still after a year, the huge divide between progressives? It's, if you're on social media, it's 24/7. It used to be Dems versus Republicans, and now it's like literally like progressives against each other. How do you deal with that when people just behave so ugly? And I'm sure you get a fair number of people who say, I won't vote Dem. I don't care if I like you. I will not vote Dem. I don't care. So how do you deal with those kind of things?
Well, and now, tell you what, let me start with progressives and conservatives. So my message to conservatives is that my biggest issue is getting money and corruption out of politics, adding term limits to all levels of office, and ultimately I'm going to represent all of my constituents. So really what I want to do is bring the power back to the people and not force my opinion onto my constituent. So this has gone a long way to get the support of conservatives, which is the majority of this district. And ultimately, I feel like it's going to be the only way that a Democrat, independent, or anybody will ultimately win this district. So, it's going to be a little bit difficult if I'm in there, because there could be a possibility that my constituents would have me vote against, my own personal views. But ultimately, I feel like a representative has to represent the district as a whole. So that's one thing that I've done to, kind of bridge the divide between progressives and conservatives. Now, progressives versus progressives. I've actually, my campaign manager was actually a Hillary Clinton supporter. She's been very supportive of myself just because of my ideas. But we work pretty well together. And that is one of the things that I wanted to do from the beginning of the campaign, is really try to let, those who supported Hillary Clinton, were on the other side, of the party, let them know that, I'm willing to work with them and have discussions and try to work things out, but and ultimately not. I didn't want to have a volatile environment. We got to work together at some point too. We got to recognize that we're going to have some differences, but really the only way to work those things out is to have a conversation, and rather than arguing and yelling at each other. So
yeah, absolutely. Let's see who said that. Mark, I believe. Where'd he go? Mark is a fellow RP teammate, and he wants to know, how would you address the problem of lack of farm workers on farms, depending on that low-cost labor?
How would we? Can you say the question again?
Yes. How would you address the problem of lack of farm workers on farms, depending on that low-cost labor?
A lack of, okay. Well, I believe that. How are we going to deal with farm workers being subjected to potentially low income?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he means, to be quite honest. Okay, let's start here. Do you have a lot of farms in your district?
We do. A large portion of my district is rural. So yeah, we do have a lot of farms. And a large portion, we have a lot of ranches. Now, I haven't been able to figure out how many workers we have out there that are being subjected to, low income wages. But ultimately, that has a lot to do with immigration down here. We do have a problem with businesses, private farmer owners taking advantage of somebody who might not be here legally. There have been issues with somebody being employed, and then after they finish their job, they don't get paid because all they have to do is threaten to call ICE on them, and then they'll avoid actually taking action to try to get that paycheck. So I would we need to put a stop to that sort of business practice. And I am a little worried that is taking place on a lot of these farms.
What do you say to your constituents when they tell you, what's the point in voting? Our votes don't count. We saw what happened in 2016. What do you say to encourage people to get out and vote anyway? Because the amount of voters is going to decide who wins, obviously.
How do we encourage to get more people out to vote? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's the message. Like I said, the reason I'm running is I'm not a politician. I'm just an average citizen. And what I'm noticing down here is people are so discouraged because they don't believe that the person running for office is really in it for them. So I'm really trying to get the message out that I'm not an average politician. Ultimately, I want you to have the say in the way I go forward, I vote. And, I think whenever they see that, I'm just like them, I'm angry at the system. I'm not somebody that's going to, where the power is going to get to my head or anything. I think people want to have a genuine candidate. And whenever they see that, I think they'll be encouraged to go out and vote. They'll feel driven to go out and vote.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely what draws people in now. I think Byrne taught us that. That's for sure. So what is something you want to leave with our viewers? Something that you want them to take away about you as a candidate, basically to encourage people to vote for you or spread your campaign info? What would you like them to take away from this?
Well, I just want people to know that I am, I'm somebody that stands up for justice when I see injustice. And, that's really what this is about. I feel that there's been an injustice done to the average voter. We don't have candidates who represent us. So, I'm just an average person who hopes to encourage other average citizens to run for office themselves. And, we just need more people who look like us, who come from, the same backgrounds as us, and who really recognize the struggle. And that's what I am. This is really just, I feel like this is my civic duty. And, I'm a single man, I don't have kids, live a very modest life. And luckily I'm just able to put the time and effort into this sort of movement. And I hope I can be part of the change, in our political system. So, if people know, if any of your viewers know of anyone in the area, please definitely spread the message. Spread the message to your friends. Maybe they'll know of somebody. And if you can donate, that'd be great. But I think we're doing very well right now. Our message is very strong, and those who are listening to it are very supportive of us. So, but we still need to get through this primary, and I think if we get through the primary, we'll do very well in the general too.
Do you want to give your donation link, your website, your Facebook, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, our Facebook page is Snider for Congress, and that's Snider with an I. Our Twitter page is Snider, the number 4, and Congress, and our website is sniderforcongress.com. And you can donate through the website, and you can email us, contact us through the website. So come out and share all of our links. I would love for y'all to chime in and ask me questions whenever we put up things, and just share it with whoever you can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Justin. We wish you the best of luck with everything. It's coming up in less than a month, so that's exciting. Thank you guys for watching. As usual, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, 9 p.m. Eastern. Wednesday, I have a candidate from New York named Sander Hicks. And Friday, I have California Green, Kenneth Mejia. He will actually be at 10 Eastern because of the time difference. But thank you guys again for watching, and thank you, Justin. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.